How's it going, friends? Just a few hours ago, Iran concluded a retaliatory strike on a major U.S. military installation, the Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. This isn't just any base. Al Udeid is the hub of U.S. space and air operations in the region. It's home to advanced fighter jets like the F-22, massive fuel storage, and key maintenance infrastructure. Think of it as the Pentagon's beating heart in the Middle East. Roughly 10,000 American troops are stationed there. But it's not just Americans. Military forces from Qatar, Canada, Bahrain, Australia, Denmark, and even the UK also operate from this base. It's essentially a Western coalition hub nestled in the Gulf. Iran fired 19 ballistic missiles toward Al Udeid, but only one even came close to breaching the base's defenses. That's largely thanks to Qatar's sophisticated three-layered air defense system, which successfully intercepted the rest. The attack, while dramatic in optics, caused no real damage, and that was intentional. Iran's choice of ballistic missiles, which are easier to detect and intercept, instead of its stealthier cruise missiles, sends a message. They weren't aiming to kill. They notified Qatar and the US in advance. The goal was to make a statement, not start a war. If lives had been lost, especially American or Qatari, the response would have been catastrophic. Other powers might have stepped in, triggering a much larger conflict. So Iran's strike was symbolic, a controlled response, mirroring the US's earlier measured attacks. Yes, the US has unmatched power. Its retaliatory strike on Iran was much more intense, particularly in places like Natanz and Isfahan. But even then, Iran refrained from escalating. Instead, it shifted the rules of engagement. It made clear it would now consider U.S. bases in Arab countries legitimate targets if attacked. We saw a similar pattern during Iran's symbolic strike on Israel. Again, there was advance notice. Very few missiles penetrated defenses, and those that did carried minimal explosives. Iran wasn't aiming to kill, it was signaling. Both the U.S. and Iran, it seems, wanted to avoid all-out war. And for now, it looks like they've managed to do just that. Iran has now issued a statement calling for Israel to exercise similar restraint. This could signal a shift, possibly the beginning of a de-escalation phase. The recent attack on Iran's Fordow nuclear site didn't stop Iran's nuclear program. Enriched uranium remains intact, as do many centrifuges. Iran still has the knowledge and materials, just not the political space to act openly. But one message is clear. Iran believes its survival hinges on deterrence, and that means keeping its nuclear capabilities intact. The US certainly wanted to project power. It announced that 7 B-2 bombers, over 100 aircraft, and dozens of bunker-buster bombs and Tomahawk missiles were deployed in the strike, all shared in a flashy press conference. This wasn't just about Iran. It was also for Israel and the American public. But despite the spectacle, Iran's missile response shattered one long-held belief, that Israel is untouchable. Iran has shown that even a missile barrage alone could eventually overwhelm Israeli defenses. This realization may be one reason Israel is now more open to de-escalating, with US support offering a convenient exit strategy. Still, tensions remain. Qatar in particular is upset. Its sovereignty was violated. Missiles fell on its soil. Iran, however, claims the US used Qatar's base to launch its strike, making it a legitimate target in return. And there's strong reason to believe that Al Udeid was indeed involved in the US operation. Iran's leadership has since doubled down. Ayatollah Khamenei tweeted that no lives were lost and that Iran deliberately avoided civilian areas. His message was firm. Iran won't back down. Those who know the country, he said, know it won't surrender. And while the US seems content with the current outcome, even Donald Trump thanked Iran in a tweet. Another troubling development unfolded. Israel expanded its own campaign inside Iran, targeting not just infrastructure but prisons, facilities housing both political dissidents and hardened criminals. Why strike prisons? From a military perspective, it makes little sense. But strategically, it's clear. The goal is to undermine the state's capacity to govern. We've seen this playbook before, in Gaza and Syria, where strikes on police stations, hospitals, water depots, and food centers break the backbone of civil society. When prisons are hit, chaos follows. Political prisoners escape alongside criminals, disrupting cities and eroding public order. France even raised concerns after 2 French nationals were injured during an Israeli prison strike, though the broader attack itself went largely uncondemned. Israel has justified these actions as support for anti-regime forces. But what it's really doing is weakening Iran from within, removing the pillars that uphold governance. And it's not just missiles doing the damage. The Washington Post recently published a chilling exposé. In it, Mossad, Israel's intelligence agency, is heard in a leaked audio threatening Iranian commanders. Leave the country within 12 hours, or your families will be targeted. The recording was sent to around 20 IRGC members. This is psychological warfare, targeting not just leaders but their families. A deeply personal and terrifying tactic. Coming from a source like the Washington Post, this leak carries weight. It suggests Israel is pursuing not just military goals, but regime disruption at any cost. In war, civilian life is often the first casualty. Neither Iran, nor Israel, nor the US has shown consistent regard for non-combatants. But systematic threats against families? That's a line many believe should never be crossed. And then there's the disinformation. Trump lashed out at news outlets like CNN and ABC for questioning the effectiveness of the US strike on Iran's nuclear facilities. But even US military officials admit damage assessments are incomplete. Road access was bombed shortly after the strike, blocking investigators. So the truth remains murky. What we do know is this: Iran's nuclear ambitions haven't been derailed. The capability remains, and without boots on the ground, dismantling the program completely is near impossible. That's a reality the US has yet to fully confront. Now, let's look at the regional implications. Pakistan was deeply concerned that a broader war would derail its fragile economy and improving global ties. Arab Gulf nations, heavily dependent on energy exports, feared similar instability. A wider conflict could have brought devastation. Thankfully, cooler heads prevailed. Iran gave advance notice to Qatar and the US before launching its symbolic strike. That matters, especially given how crowded Qatari airspace is, with over 750 flights daily. Iran wanted to avoid a repeat of the Ukrainian passenger plane tragedy, which it accidentally downed in 2020. In the end, the strike on Al Udeid was more about messaging than mayhem, and that may be the best news of all. The Arab world, the Palestinian Authority, and even Pakistan condemned the strike, not for its damage, but because it violated Qatar's sovereignty. But if Qatar chooses not to escalate, the crisis may be over, at least for now. It now appears that Israel and Iran are stepping back, cautiously. The world's attention may return to Gaza and the Palestinians, a place still suffering deeply, still burning in the background. If there's any sense of morality or rationality left among world powers, they must stop the bloodshed. Otherwise, this fragile moment of peace will fade, and the flames of war could rise again. Thanks for watching.